Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and OpenCore Legacy Patcher for unsupported Macs has been updated to version 0.3.3. Apple also released macOS Monterey 12.1 and macOS Big Sur 11.6.2 updates. And you might be asking yourself, how do I update to the latest version of macOS? Can I just do it through system preferences? Do I have to do something else? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to show you how to update to the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher, because there's some big changes in this release that you're going to need to know about before you get started. So I'm going to go over that, and I'm going to give you a sneak preview of the brand new 0.3.4 GUI application that was just redesigned. So we got a lot to cover. Let's jump in and get started. Okay, in the first part of the video, I'm going to show you how to update macOS on your unsupported Mac. It doesn't matter if you're running macOS Big Sur or macOS Monterey. When you go to another version, like for example, if you're on 12.0.1 and you go to 12.1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, the process is the same. So as long as you follow the instructions that I go over here, you can update to the latest version. And then next, I'm going to go over the changelog and all the changes in the 0.3.3 OpenCore Legacy Patcher. Some big changes that you're going to need to know about. Then I'm going to show you how to actually update the app, build it, and then install it to your internal hard drive. Let's start with the updates. Okay, for updates, the first thing you need to do is just simply open up System Preferences. Once you have System Preferences open, you can go into Software Update in the System Preferences menu. And then it's immediately going to check for a software update. If it says that there's no update available and you know that you're on 12.0.1 and you're looking for 12.1, click Advanced and then click OK again, and it'll automatically refresh to check for updates again. If that doesn't work, you can open up the Terminal app. When we open up the Terminal app here, all we need to do is run the command software update -L. So do software update -L for list. You should get the same thing that it shows in here, but sometimes this can kick it off and show the update. There it is. So let's say that you do it in both these situations and it still doesn't work. There is actually a problem with the 12.0.1 update where sometimes it doesn't show. You have to open up Activity Monitor and look for a process called macOS Brain. So if you just type in Brain, if you see a macOS update Brain service, click on this and kill it. You might see another process kill that too, and that will respawn automatically and you might be able to see the update. So that's 3 different ways you can do that. Now the fourth way is if none of those work, you can go to my site and then click on macOS Big Sur installers or Monterey installers. And what you can do is you can download the full installer. So for example, you can click on this 12.1 install assistant package, download that, and you can use the full installer to update to a new version. And hopefully when 12.2, 3, or 4 come out, you can just use System Preferences and it'll work. So that's a little bit of troubleshooting if you don't see the update. Okay, for a demonstration unit today, I'm using a 2012 Mac Mini running macOS Monterey 12.0.1. So again, all we need to do is go into the software update so we can see if we see the update, and we already see the update. There's some things that we need to go over before we get started. I mentioned that there's an update to OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.3. Let's take one thing at a time. So let's get to 12.1 first, then we'll take care of the update after that, one step at a time. You don't want to do too many things at the same time. So we see the updates available, but there's a couple steps that we want to take before we get started. And what I mean by that is that you need to understand that which Macs require a patch for the Wi-Fi after. If you install the update and then the Mac comes back up from the update to 12.1, you won't have Wi-Fi. Your regular version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher is not going to work. That's why you need the offline version. The offline version contains all of the software that you'll need to update and run the patches. It doesn't have to reach out to the server. You can see here 33.5 megabytes and 537 megabytes. So that's the difference. This one has all the files that you need for the patches inside here, so you don't need Wi-Fi. So let's take a look at that list. Now keep in mind, these Wi-Fi patches are just for macOS Monterey. macOS Big Sur has all these, so you don't have to worry about the offline application. So here's the list of wireless card support that was dropped in macOS Monterey. For example, a MacBook Pro 2010 needs those patches, but if you have a 2011, you're fine. But if you have a iMac 2011, you have that card and you need those patches. So check this list first. This list will basically tell you if you need to download the offline. So how do we check for sure? So I told you how to do this, but let's show you an easy way to find out if you're going to need that offline app or not. So click on Finder, go into Applications here, and then go and open up your OpenCore Legacy Patcher application, and we'll find out how to check that. Once we're in here, you can see your model right here. So you can pretty much match this up with this list over here. And as you can see, this Mac Mini doesn't need the offline because the Mac Mini all the way up to 4.1 has those patches in it. But if you have a 2009 3.1, you are going to need the offline. But let's show you how to check even more. So let's go back in here, and if you click on number 3 to install the Post Volume Patch, you can go in here without installing it, and even when you click number 1, it's still not going to patch it. To patch this in volume, this tells you what is needed for this particular Mac Mini. As you can see here, it doesn't say anything about legacy Wi-Fi. If you see something in here with legacy Wi-Fi, that's when you know you're going to need the offline app before you begin. So let's say you need the offline app, but you only downloaded the online app. So let's hit no on here. Let's hit quit. All you need to do is go to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher site and download the offline app and then put it to your applications folder. That's it. So once you come back up after the update is complete, you'll be able to run the patches, fix your Wi-Fi, and you'll be good to go. Now, how do you know if you even need any patches at all? I've mentioned in the past with metal compatible Macs, you usually don't need the patches, but with macOS Monterey, that all changed because Apple dropped certain drivers for these cards, and you need to check to make sure that you need to install those patches after. They're not just for graphics anymore. As we just talked about, for some Macs, they're for Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So let's go back into the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app so we can see. And just like I showed you how to check before, to check to see if you need the patcher, all you need to do, click on number 3 to do the patcher, install the Post Volume Patch. Click on number 3. Hit enter, click on number 1 again, and this will tell you if you need it or not. If you see that no patches are needed here, you are good to go and you can install the update and you don't need to do anything. But for most Macs, you will see something here because the application detects what hardware you have. So for example, this 2012 Mac Mini needs the Legacy Intel Ivy Bridge graphics patch, and you know right off the bat that you're going to need to install the Post Volume Patch after an update. So that's how you can figure out if you're going to need to install the Post Volume Patch or not. And if it seems like there's a lot of steps here, there is, but once you know exactly what to do, every update's going to be the same. You're not going to have to worry about this anymore. You know you're going to have to install the Post Volume Patch after. You know that you can just install the update through System Preferences. It's going to be like second nature once we get started here. So now that you see the updates available, what I always recommend you do is if you have any important files in here, back them up to a USB, use Time Machine, use whatever you need to do it. And again, almost all of my updates work fine, and I've installed this hundreds of times and they've all usually gone very well. But you don't want to be that one that installs the update and something goes wrong, right? So if you have your files backed up, no big deal. You just reinstall and you're back up. And I say this because even for supported Macs, they have problems. So once we're dealing with unsupported Macs, we want to be extra careful to just be sure that we have all of our files backed up before we begin. Now, once you do, it would also help if you had your OpenCore Legacy Patcher USB standing by, just in case something goes wrong. That's why I recommend once we build that USB, to keep that alongside, put it in a drawer, keep it inside, just in case something goes wrong. You can always boot to recovery on the USB in case something goes wrong or whatever you need to do. Once you have all that set up, all you need to do is click Update Now, and it'll immediately start downloading the update. Now, there's 2 different updates that are downloaded to the Mac when you're running an unsupported Mac. There's first is the Delta update. If you are not a root patch or do not have to install the Post Volume Patches, then you are going to have anywhere between a 1.5 to 3.5 or 4 gigabyte Delta update, depending on how far back you go. The way macOS updates work is that it will only install the information that it needs. So for example, if you're going from 12.01 to 12.1 and you do not need the root patches, it's going to be a very small update. But if you go from 12.1 to 12.5 in the future, it's going to be a lot larger update. But as you can see here, this is a 11.32, and that's what you're going to get if you have to install the Post Volume Patches. And that's no big deal. It's just going to take a little bit longer to update and download the update, but once it's finished, the Mac is going to restart, install the update, and before you know it, we'll be back in macOS. Once that's complete, All we'll need to do is go back into OpenCore Legacy Patcher application and run that post volume patch, or check. As we talked about before, you can check if you need it before you make the update, and all you need to do is click on that post volume patch number 3 to install that post volume patch, and then you're good to go. Let's talk about a couple quick troubleshooting steps that you might run into if you're having problems with this update. If you install this update at any point it hangs up, just let it go for up to 3 hours. On some of the oldest Macs, sometimes the update takes a long time to apply. But after that 3-hour mark, and that's just kind of a good marker where it gives the update enough time to install, but then we're starting to get into the section where if it's taken more than 3 hours, something might be wrong. If that happens, there's nothing really you can do at that point other than to power down. So power down the Mac, power it back on, and a lot of times it'll finish the update and boot right back into macOS and you're good to go. But most of the time it's just going to install the update and get you right back into macOS. If you still get stuck, progress bar, give it a little time, but then if that still gets stuck that second time, power it down, power it back up, hold down shift, and then boot into safe mode. A lot of times safe mode will let you boot into the operating system, and then it'll help you, it'll finish the update and you're good, and then you can apply the post volume patches and then you're good to go. So that's how you can navigate around if you're having some troubleshooting issues. But again, hopefully we'll just install and you'll be good to go. Okay, we're back up after the 12.1 update at the login window, and we can already tell right off the bat that we're going to need to apply the post volume patches for this particular unit because it needs the GPU patches, because look at the grayness in the background here. So once we type in our password here, the post volume patches again include so many extra things now, not just GPU patches like we talked about earlier in the video. We're back up and we need to apply those patches. So let's go back into the OpenCore Legacy Patcher application here. Now all we need to do is click on number 3 for the post install volume patch, hit enter, and number 1 to patch the system, and then Y for yes, and there it goes. It's going to download all the files that it needs and apply the post volume patches here. Hit enter, password, enter again, and then hit enter again for the snapshot, and then enter to continue. Now all we need to do is hit Q to quit, and let's reboot. Okay, we're back up and we can already see the transparency is fixed because we have the proper graphics drivers. So we'll type in our password here, log back in, and that's it, we're back in. So that's installing the macOS Monterey 12.1 update and what you have to do with OpenCore Legacy Patcher after the update. Well, what about macOS Big Sur? Is it the same way as we just went over with macOS Monterey? And the answer is it is, except for the fact that macOS Big Sur doesn't require as many Macs to install the post volume patches after. So as you can see here, software update is up here and it shows the 11.6.2 update. But when we click on update, we can tell right off the bat whether we need the post volume patches or not, because you can tell by the download size. But I'm also going to show you in the OpenCore app just to show you how to confirm that. So we'll give it a second to get the calculation here. And there you go, 2.6.0 gigabytes. So we can already tell that this mid 2013 MacBook Pro running macOS Big Sur does not require the post volume patches after. So let's verify that. Let's go back to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher applications, click on number 3, and then hit enter. And then number 1, enter. There we go. No root patches are required for this for your machine. And this should be the way, not by, you have this and this and this. Let the application check for you. And that's the ultimate answer whether your Mac needs to install the post volume patches or not. So in this case, we don't have to do anything. After this update finishes for macOS Big Sur 11.6.2, it'll come back up. You don't have to install any post volume patches and you're good to go. And that's macOS Big Sur and macOS updates. Okay, now that we showed you how to update your macOS Big Sur and your macOS Monterey Unsupported Mac to the latest version using system preferences, now let's talk about the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.3 and why it's such a big deal. After that, I talk about some of the patch notes and the information in there. I'm going to go over a little bit of the changelog on some of the improvements, and then I'm going to show you how to update the application and install those new settings to your internal hard drive, because just installing the application does not update OpenCore Legacy Patcher on that Mac. It's a two-step process, and we'll go over that next. So the first thing we need to talk about is the big change for 0.3.2 and 0.3.3. With the release of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.2 and 0.3.3, we've implemented a brand new spoofless approach for native macOS usage. Previously, we would attempt to pass ourselves as a native Mac to pass OS checks. However, this forced us to implement numerous patches that Apple coded for the model that we set. With the spoofless approach, we're using the VMM masking to hide ourselves as a virtual machine, allowing for far greater flexibility with drivers and OS support. Now, let's look closely about what that means. I talked to Dina K about this, and he showed me what the OS looks at when it checks for updates. So it looks at this address here, gdmf.apple.com. And you can see in here all the supported board IDs that macOS uses to check to see if your Mac is compatible and what update is available for you. So previously, like the patch notes mentioned, we would say that the Mac is one of these board IDs. So for example, if you had a old MacBook 7,1, it would say it's the latest MacBook Pro that supported macOS Monterey in one of these board IDs. But instead, we're using this identifier here, VMM x8664, to say, hey, we're a virtual machine. And that helps with compatibility, and it's a great change. The only way to get that change, though, is to install the 0.3.3 application and then set those settings that you normally set when we first installed and install them to the internal hard drive. Then you're set, and you're going to use the new version to check for updates. But before we do that, there's some important notes that we're going to have to go over first. Those two is if you have, for example, a 2011 MacBook Pro, for example, a lot of the Macs use the HD3000. So you would have to go into About This Mac and check your GPU to see if you have that version. But if you do, there's some extra steps that you're going to need to take. So let's look at what we need to do in that specific situation. Because of the switch to spoofless, the Intel HD3000 drivers need to patch the board ID of the machine, otherwise causing a black screen with the new EFI. We recommend users do either of these things. You have to pick one of these. So for example, if you have macOS Monterey, you need to unpatch the Post Volume Patch, reboot, and then reapply the patches with the 0.3.3 application. So let's take a quick look at what that means. So we'll go back to our Mac Mini here. Okay, for the HD3000 GPU, so all we need to do is unpatch if we're running macOS Monterey. So all we need to do is open up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher application, go to number 3 to install the Post Volume Patch, and then we're going to see an option here for unpatch the system volume. So all you need to do is hit number 2 here, and then enter in your administrator password of the account. And then it's going to revert to the last signed APS snapshot. It's going to say successfully mounted and reverting to the last sign, unpatching complete, reboot for the patches to take effect. Hit enter, go to the main menu, hit quit, and we'll reboot this Mac Mini. Okay, we're back up. We can see that we're unpatched because of the transparency is gone from the buttons and the password section. We'll go back into the operating system. Remember, the system will be slow at this point until we get the Post Volume Patches installed. So we'll give it a second here. And then we will open up the brand new OpenCore Legacy Patcher version 3.3. We'll go download it from the site. And once OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.4 comes out, it'll be the same thing too. So we'll get this here, and we will download the GUI app. Okay, go down into our applications folder down here. We'll open up applications here, and we will drag the app right to our applications folder. As you can see, I got the previous versions here, but you can double click to make sure that we're on the current version by looking at the menu system once it loads up here. And as you can see, we're on 0.3.3, so we're ready to patch this HD3000 system. So all we need to do again is hit number 3 to post volume patches. And then we will patch the system volume, hit yes to continue, and there we go. Once we download, and we will enter in our administrator password. And one of the nice features of 0.3.3 is that a lot of the stops where you have to click enter are now gone. I talked to Makola about this, and he only had that in for previous issues that needed to stop at certain points. But as you can see, there's no more stops to hit enter with this new version, and it is really seamless, and it's a real nice change that he implemented here. So we'll give this a second here, and it'll be done with the patching. We'll reboot, and we'll be good to go for that HD3000. So let's get back to that note to see what we need to do for Big Sur. When we're looking at Big Sur, it's a little bit different. For macOS Big Sur, you have to reinstall macOS Big Sur over the top of itself to clear itself of the root patches. And again, this is only recommended for macOS Big Sur. So that sounds like a big deal, but it's not that bad. So if you have your old USB, that would work fine. Or all you need to do is boot to recovery and then just click reinstall macOS Big Sur. It retains all of your settings and all of your applications and files, because all we're doing is basically saying I'm installing the latest version of macOS Big Sur over the top, and then once you're back up, you have to install the post volume patches after, and then you're all set. So that's for macOS Big Sur. Now, I've had a couple questions on how to get into recovery. To get into recovery for macOS Big Sur or macOS Monterey Unsupported Macs, hold down Option, and then keep holding down Option, click on the EFI boot, and then hit the space bar. You'll see macOS Recovery and a couple other options come up. Click on Recovery, it'll boot you right in, and then click macOS Big Sur, install macOS Big Sur. It'll install right over the top, and you're good to go. So now, let's say you don't want to do any of those things. You can also just set the minimum spoofing in the patcher settings, SMBIOS settings, and then set this SMBIOS spoof level to minimal or above. Again, it's recommended to go with this new version because of the compatibility fixes. But if you want to be able to do it that old way and you don't want to mess with any of that and you want to keep going with the same way, just set this setting to that. And let's go over there real quick to take a look. We'll go into the patcher settings, number 5. And then we'll go into number 3, the SMBIOS settings. And then this is where we would set the spoof level. So click on number 1 and we can see all the settings in here. And it even says at the bottom, no, for new users, we recommend leaving the default to minimal. But we already have it set to none because we're setting it in with the new way. But if you wanted to set to minimal, all you need to do is click on number 1, hit enter, and then you're done. So that's it for the HD3000 issue. And there's a lot to cover, but there's a lot of those models that have that HD3000 that we need to do these steps that are very important. Also, in this update, there was a huge change for 5K iMacs. They weren't able to get 5K resolution, and this update fixes that. You need to do some changes to get that full 5K resolution. So if you previously booted 0.3.1 or earlier, reset the NVRAM to ensure the old loader is no longer being called. This will ensure 5K output is properly resolved in 0.3.2 and 0.3.3. Mocola was looking to fix this for the longest time, and this is a wonderful fix. Now let's quickly go over some big changes in this release that you might be interested in. So first of all, it does talk about the VMM support up here. Also, one of the big things is there were some users that were saying that they don't see AirPlay on after they updated to 12.1. That's been fixed in 0.3.2 and 0.3.3. There's a new option to add the macOS Install Assistant downloader to the TUI application, and you can download the Install Assistant directly from the application and create a USB. So let's take a look at that real quick. Installer creation is number 6, and as you can see, we can just click on number 1, or we can use an existing installer. For example, if you download it from my site, you can click on number 2, and that'll create the USB for you. So all we need to do is click on number 1, and it's going to show us all of the available full installers directly from Apple. And in this application, or the OpenCore Legacy Patcher application, will download it immediately for you and create the USB for you. So that's a really nice option to be able to have it all in one application here. So we'll give it a second just to download the catalog. As you can see, at the time of this filming, you can download all these versions, 12.0.1, 12.1, all the way back to 11.5.2 and 11.2.3. And notice this link here was added from archive.org because 11.2.3 is a very specific version that, again, for compatibility, so this downloads directly from archive.org, so that's a really cool option that was put in there. So back to the change list here. One of the important things that was implemented was Wi-Fi fixed password fix, or the Wi-Fi password prompt in macOS Monterey. So if you went up to the Wi-Fi icon here and then you clicked on connect to Wi-Fi networks and it wouldn't load the window to be able to enter in your password, that was a big problem, and that was fixed in this release, and that's a really great, because a lot of people were having that problem. And what the workaround was is to go into network preferences and do a manual connection to that endpoint, and that was kind of a workaround. And then also we mentioned the 5K display output for 5K Macs, and that was again a big fix Mocola was able to get done. So that wraps up some of the major fixes for 0.3.3. Now let's go over how to download and install 0.3 to your unsupported Mac. Okay, we're back to our demonstration Mac Mini here, and it has 0.3.1 OpenCore Legacy Patcher on it. And we want to update this Mac Mini to the latest version of 0.3.3 application and install those new settings to the hard drive. Again, it's a two-step process here. So all we need to do is go to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher GitHub here, and then go to the releases here. Just click on the latest releases here, and then scroll down. You're going to see the GUI app, and then the GUI offline app. You'll see the GUI app for the terminal app, and then the terminal offline app. So again, we showed you earlier in the video to pick which one you need. Then all we need to do is click on the one we need here. So for this demonstration, we'll click the GUI app here, and then once it's downloaded, it'll hop up and down. We'll open up our Finder, click on Applications here, and then drag the application right over here. So you're already probably going to have an OpenCore Legacy Patcher in here. It's going to ask you to overwrite it here, and you want to click Replace. And there we go. So let's double click on it to open up the brand new version of 0.3.3. Click on Open. We have the application, but it's not installed to our internal hard drive yet. Again, this is only step one of the process. So just installing the application is not going to get you your Mac fully updated to the 0.3.3 code. So now all we need to do is do just like we did in the very beginning, is build those OpenCore settings. So if you had any custom settings that you need to do in here, you make those changes now. But again, for most people, just leave the settings that the TUI application pick for your Mac, because that's it. We don't need to check anything else because it's smart to know the proper settings that you're going to need to do. So the only thing that I recommend though is to go into the patcher settings number 5 and then change the miscellaneous settings number 5 here to show the picker mode number 1, and click on no for not to show the boot picker. And what that does is that gives a native experience. So when you start your Mac, instead of going to the boot picker, it goes right to the Apple menu, so it looks like a regular Mac when it's booting. So once that's done, click Q to quit, and all the settings should be good to go. We'll click Q to quit again, and let's build those settings to a temporary file location. So we'll click on number 1 to build OpenCore, and there it is. All those settings are built to this temporary folder location. We will click enter, and now we can install those settings that we just built to our internal hard drive. We'll click on number 2, and then as long as you don't have any disks or USB drives or anything like that plugged in, this is what it's going to look like, and we want to install it to our internal hard drive. So we'll click on 0 and then enter, and then number 1 for the EFI, and then we'll type in our administrator password for our account. And there, that's it, done. So now all we need to do is restart, and we're set. Okay, we're back up. We'll enter in our password here. And we've just installed the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.3 application and installed those latest settings to our hard drive, and we'll make sure that we see the update available in software update, and we're good to go. So we'll go into software update here, and we'll click on software update, and look at that, 12.1 is available as an update. I did promise you a sneak peek of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.3.4 GUI application. Let's take a quick look at that. This is what the application would look like. The application was written by DOS Dude, and honestly, it did what it needed to do, but there wasn't any built-in intelligence. There was some, but not to detect all the pieces that are on your Mac. For example, if you had custom hardware in there, it wouldn't know. It would just basically take a default set to your model identification. But that's what Mocola set out to do, is write a brand new application that takes the best of the TUI application and be able to detect in the new GUI. So here's the new GUI app for 0.3.4. And now again, this is still in beta. It's not been released yet. As you can see, all the information is here in really easy to use buttons. All the settings that we had in the TUI application are here. Build and install OpenCore, install the post root patch, create a macOS installer, settings, and then help. All of it's here. Remember how I'd always recommend using the TUI app? Once this is released, feel free to use this version because it is fully redesigned from the bottom up and it works wonderfully. So, example, if you want to go into the settings, here's the settings. You can change the different model here, and then here's all the settings that you can turn on. Verbose mode, you can turn on debug mode. All the settings that you needed to use in the TUI app are right here. It's really nice. So that's it. Sorry for the long video, but you can tell that there was a lot of stuff to go over in this video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments and I'll give you a hand here, because again, there's a lot of moving pieces in this 0.3.3 update. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, click on that subscribe button. And you can also follow me on Twitter at classic2_Mr. Mac. And if you want to support me and the channel, you can join my Patreon. I truly appreciate all my patrons. Have a great day and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.